Hello, everyone. Thank you for creating time to join us in our webinar today. My name is Vincent Mwangi, and I'm the head of partnerships at Mama Hope. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya, and the webinar is on community-led development, or rather locally led development and early stage organizations. And with us, I'm joined with by some panelists who are both partners of Mama Hope and allies in this work. I'm just going to do a little bit of an introduction of Mama Hope. Mama Hope is a 501c3 that was started in 2008, and we've been working or championing community-led change. We've previously worked in 9 countries, but we're currently in 5 countries, and that is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana, and Guatemala. We also currently have 12 partners who are in the different stages of our Localization Development Accelerator program, which we are going to talk about later on. And I'm just going to take this opportunity to introduce my panelists who have joined us today. And I'd like them to say their name, where they're based, their organization, and their role in the organizations. I'm going to call them out. And so I'd like us to start with Rebecca. Would you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My good names are Rebecca Robert Mnyawa. And before going any further, I'd love to thank Mama Hope for this great opportunity to be in the space today and share my insights regarding to locally led development. And I'm also excited to learn from other speakers today. So I'm a human resource administrator and a project management expert who has been in the nonprofit sector for 5 years, but specifically working with locally led organizations for 4 years. And most of the locally led organizations I've been working with are partners of Mama Hope. So I can confidently say and proudly say that I'm a product of Mama Hope, and I'm a product of community-led development at large. So today I'm representing Simbas Footprints Foundation, which is a community or locally led organization and a community center that operates in Moshi, Kilimanjaro, Tanzania. And what we basically do is to empower communities to take charge of their own development by creating safe space for these communities to come and address their challenges and come up with sustainable solutions, but also involve the local communities in designing, implementing, and also implementing the programs, without forgetting linking with opportunities, families, and children. So we have a bunch of programs, but they're all based under our 5 thematic areas. That's after school programs, girls and women empowerment programs, youth engagement programs, education outreach, and community support. So can you allow me to give a nutshell about how these programs are and what we do basically? So in after school programs, we impart young people with skills that they do not get from the public syllabuses. So we have music program, dance class, arts and crafts, and we have soccer programs. And in the second semantic area, that's girls and women empowerment program, we work closely to over 10 schools of Moshi Municipal. And what we basically do is impart sexual reproductive and rights education. We also teach about leadership and also how to make sanitary pads. And this is mainly to reduce the number of girls that are missing out school just because they cannot afford sanitary pads. But in the women empowerment part, we annually work about, we work with about 50 women, impart them with tailoring skills, more employable, and they can start something of their own. In the third thematic area, is youth engagement program. Yes, we link young people with, we have different agricultural activities. We do farming, we do animal keeping, and this is more like a assessment program before granting further sponsorship of maybe vocational trainings or college sponsorship. We have education outreach program. This aims to promote education in our communities, whereby we run different English clubs. As we all know that in Tanzania, we learn everything in Swahili in the primary level. But there is a shift of language that when we go to the secondary level, like we learn everything in English except for Swahili as a subject. So this shift has caused a number of school dropouts, and to overcome this, Simbas has decided to run English clubs in different schools to overcome this shift. But we also provide teaching and learning aids to different schools, together with renovating school infrastructures. And the last thematic area is community support, whereby we create and facilitate different platforms for different stakeholders to come together and discuss their challenges and come up with sustainable solutions of the challenge. We also host and sponsor community awareness events, could be commemorations of Women's Day, African Child Day, and etc. And lastly, we provide education sponsorships and health insurance sponsorships. So that's a nutshell about what do we do basically as an organization. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca, for the detailed introduction. I'd like to pass it on to Nora, and I'd like to encourage our panelists to just be a bit brief with the introduction so that we can start our conversation right away. Thank you.
Hi, everybody, and thanks to Mama Hope for inviting me to be here today. I think I was connected with Mama Hope many years ago, probably, I don't know, eight years ago at this point, but it's been a really inspiring organization to me, as we share a lot of values in common. So my name is Nora Burkey. I am the founder and executive director of an organization called the Chain Collaborative. We work primarily in the coffee sector, and our mission is to invest in local leaders in coffee communities around the world, so that they're designing and realizing their own community projects for development based on their own visions for change and impact. And so the way we do that has evolved over time, and we have recently developed sort of an incubator program for partners to go through, so that they can participate and learn from one another as they are developing, designing, and carrying out their own initiatives. So we've seen a lot of success with that, and I'm happy to share sort of more throughout the broader webinar. But I think just one thing I would want to also add about our organization, which is very similar to Mama Hope, is the role we play in the development sector, which is really, it's not just about promoting and, working with community-led development. It's also about doing so in a way that's really filling a gap in this space. And so there are a number, although not enough and not many, of foundations that are working directly with community-based organizations and investing in community-based organizations in various countries, so that development is locally led. But just given the nature of perhaps how they have to donate, or just the nature of their organizations, they're often looking for organizations that have a proven track record of success, can go through these really extensive sort of due diligence processes. And it's sort of like the chicken and egg situation. How do you get to that place without some of your first investments and starting out small, right? And so, there's very little to no space, I would say, for emerging community-based organizations in their first years, where they don't have a large amount of institutional support, to get started, and to potentially reach a place where they can go through those due diligence processes, and they can receive kind of direct funding from some of those, more forward-thinking organizations. And so as the Chain Collaborative seeks to invest in community-based organizations in the coffee sector, what we're looking for is those community-led organizations that are not at that size of when they can kind of work directly with these forward-thinking funders, and haven't yet, had the experience of maybe even their first opportunity of funding, right, to manage these grants. So I know that with Mama Hope's programming, they're playing a similar role, really working with early stage organizations that have incredible potential to kind of reach, the place where some of their peers already are. And this is just a huge gap, I think, in the community-led development space that more people need to be paying attention to, and that really need to fill. So I'm just excited that this is the direction that Mama Hope has also taken from the very beginning, and there's a lot of co-learning to do, because I think at the end of the day, although Chain Collaborative is involved in the coffee sector, the ways in which that we collaborate with communities is more about trust building, and it's more about just sort of trusting in their visions for change, and we could really do that in almost any community, right? It's just that happens to be kind of what brings us together is coffee, but it's more about the community-led piece and the connection. So there's a lot to learn from each other. So I'll leave it there for now, Vincent, and turn it over to another panelist. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nora, for the introduction. I'd like to have Tobias Ounga go next.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
No, I would like you to introduce yourself, where you're based, the name of your organization, and the role that you play in that organization, as well as the work that the organization is focused on doing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vincent. Hi, everyone. My name is Tobias Ounga. I'm joining from Kisumu, Kenya, and I'm the executive. I'm actually I'm a founding director of Tropical Focus for Rural Development, which is based in Kisumu, Kenya, and currently I'm the executive director. Tropical Focus for Rural Development mainly focuses on improving the standard of living of disadvantaged families in the western part of Kenya, mainly around Kisumu. This is around Lake Victoria. And we are doing it, the approach, we are doing it in various strategies that we are employing to improve the standard of living of these communities. The area has a very high prevalence of poverty. There is a very high prevalence of poverty in this western region of Kenya, and it is due to because of the HIV scourge, which has been in the area, and the rates have been very high in the area. So we have had several families losing their breadwinners. Several families have lost their. We have a lot of orphaned children in the area, and also because of awareness and generally skills are very low. So the incidences of poverty are very high in this area. So Tropical Focus tries to improve the standard of living among these disadvantaged communities and households. And we are doing it to use the disadvantaged children. We are trying to improve the opportunities of children to education. So we are supporting children. We are supporting children education activities. This is in terms of paying their school levies, those who are in primary school, because in Kenya, primary school is free, but there are some levies that have to be met. And some of the children may get poorer opportunity at proceeding on with their education just because they miss some of the basic items. So Tropical Focus supports the provision of these needs at school, the basic needs, also includes also Tropical Focus supports these children beyond the childhood stage. This is into the youth stage, into high school, and also life skills for youth. Children's education all the way from primary school to secondary school, high school, and into colleges. Also, even beyond colleges, Tropical Focus, we are involved in mentoring the youth. Then also, we support individuals in households. That is at the homestead level. We also have income support strategy in which we guardians of these children, we try to improve their standards of living by supporting various kinds of income generation activities. Mainly, we have been focusing on agriculture, on small-scale agricultural production. Among these households, we support them with vegetable gardening. We support them with development of fish ponds to produce fish for them to sell and also to get the food. We also support them with the shed nets for vegetable gardening. These are different households. We also train them. We also train them to be able to produce for agricultural produce. At the same time, we have a temporary, an emergency children's shelter, which we are, where we are hosting children who have very severe needs. We take them in and we host them. Also, in order to support the households and the children, Tropical Focus is currently developing a value addition unit. The value addition unit is intended to buy the small agricultural produce from the families. We add value, maybe by packaging, by grinding. We intend to buy produce, although there are some we are already buying. This is basically Roselle. We are buying Roselle from the families. They grow, we give them seeds, they grow, and then we buy it back from them. Then we add value. We add value by drying it, and then we sell. But we also intend to go further and package them. We intend to sell some of the Roselle to the beverage companies, like the ones who package tea in Kenya, so that they can use the Roselle to blend tea. There are different agricultural produce that we are introducing to these families so that they'll be able to get money out of them, including chilies. We are also introducing ginger and various spices. We are also introducing asparagus
Tobias.
to the families. Yes.
Sorry for cutting you short.
That are very hardy. They are crops that are very hardy, but can generate very good income. Value addition, add value. This is within Tropical Focus. At the same time,
Tobias, we'll spend 20 minutes on introduction. So
sorry.
I'd like you to
Okay.
finish up so that we can jump into the conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and all these activities we are doing, really, we have partnered with Mama Hope over time. This is since the year really supported us. We have really partnered with them. And before we partnered with Mama Hope, we were really running activities that were not sustainable. But I think maybe this may come later on in the discussion. Otherwise, I'm happy to join you for the discussion for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tobias. Sorry for cutting you short. Next, we'll have James Kirima introduce himself and the work he does. Are you on mute, James?
Hi guys, my name is James Kirima. I'm based in Moshi, Kilimanjaro. Currently, I'm working with Boresha Jamii organization as a founder and managing director. Boresha Jamii organization is the organization which is focusing on children, women, and youth. And Boresha is the Swahili word, which means improve. So it's improve the society. That's the meaning of the translation from Swahili to English. Boresha Jamii organization has different kind of projects currently. Like we have the women empowerment project, but also we have the bicycle project and sponsorship for the students who are in secondary schools. Because of the time, I think I will talk more as we move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James, for the introduction. I'd also like to thank everyone who's joined us. And if possible, we'd like you to comment where you're joining us from or and the organization where you work at. And we'd also like we'd like to have a conversation. So please engage us if you have any questions, comments. And so our webinar today, the title to it is the Small Fish Big Pond webinar, and we are focusing on, we are mainly discussing about early stage locally led organizations. As you might all know, of late, there's been a huge shift, or rather, there's been a huge focus on localization, which stems from, I'd say 2020, when we had the Black Lives Matter, COVID-19, there's a lot of shifts that happen within the global development sector. And so majority of donors and international organizations started focusing on equipping locally led organizations with the support, or rather directly funding them, because previously we've seen through research and that has been done by organizations within the global development sector that a lot of the grants that are made end up not getting into the grassroots organizations. They are always used up by, let's say, like the intermediaries, or they don't get the amount that they need to drive their own futures and their own their development agendas. And one of the things that has been said a lot by locally led organizations, or the grassroots organizations as they are called, is that there's a lack of resources. But now, one of the things that we've seen, especially, is that in as much as we are talking about localization, there's still a gap within the sector that we are yet to experience, because majority of the focus has gone to established locally led organizations, which have, let's say, the systems in place. They have the perfect communications and marketing, the docket. They have like set up financial systems within their organizations. And so we are seeing a gap whereby organizations that are starting, or the organizations that are bringing impact within their communities, especially the early stage ones, are being left out, because first of all, they probably don't have the systems in place for these activities or for using up these grants. And so I'll just give a small example. I'm currently reading a certain book, and on today's what I was reading, the author talks about the startup industry, the tech industry, and focusing on the startups and how they bring in disruptive innovation. I tend to see localization as disruptive development because the author says that with disruptive innovation, startups have been able to come up with cheap and efficient ways of developing products that are able to people, and over time they get to improve their products to a point where they take over big tech. We are talking about in our webinar today, we are talking about the role that early stage community or locally led organizations play in bringing about disruptive development within the global sector. As we know, there's a huge focus on the most established international development organizations, which have been way and more focused in the traditional way of development. But we'd like to bring in a new perspective, because with the early stage organizations, if we invest our time, resources, money, and setting up systems, we will be seeing models that are new, disruptive, and development will be achieved over time. And so with that, I'm going to jump right into a conversation. And one of the things I'd like to engage our panelists today is, and this, I'm just going to ask two of them, and starting with Rebeca in a short, succinct way. What do you to mind?
So when I hear about localization, what comes to mind is the shift of power that I'm thinking about. I think about shift of resources and capacitation, but I also think of more of partnership rather than telling these grassroots organizations what to do. It's more than equipping them. But what is the most challenging part is most of these grassroots organizations the new localization process mainly depend that needs to have more systems into place, more of smallest task, we need more of we need more of projects, whereby this means we also need to equip more people, like to recruit more people. And most of these grassroots organizations are not in place to do all that. So this localization coming with all those global organizations which have systems into place, which have more funds. Most of the grassroots organizations rely on short-term based funds, the project based, which does not even give you anatomy to promptly organize. You do not know even your next phase, so you cannot promptly organize, implement, or become sustainable. So all these opportunities become, localization benefits become for the globalized or the international based organizations, and leave and also these processes outlook the more like the unique features that we consider as grassroots organization. We consider more of relationships. We consider more of building trust that takes time, that takes resources to have all that. But these organizations look on a bigger radar, of resulting into development. So most of this localization process, they are good, they have good benefits, but still leaves as an opportunity for the bigger or international organizations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rebecca. And you said a really important thing, shifting of power. But there's also one thing I'd like you to think about as we go on with the conversation. I was having a conversation with someone some weeks ago, and we were talking about the term shifting the power. And I feel like when we talk about shifting the power is like, let's say, for instance, I had power, and then if I shift it to you, that means I'll be left powerless, right? What if we said, instead of shifting the power, we talk of acknowledging the power? Because most of the times we're talking about the global development sector is shifting power to locally led organizations. But then the main question is, communities have had the power to determine and shape their own futures. But why is it that the main gap or the missing link has been that the power has not been acknowledged? So I think that's what I'd like to thinking about. I really like what you said, and especially like shift of capacity as well as partnerships and establishing systems in place. But when you talk about shifting the power, it's more of the power has been there. It's only that there has not been any form of acknowledgement of the power that communities hold. And I'd also like to build on to the conversation and hear what Nora thinks or what localization means to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with my colleagues so far. I would say, to me, localization means, it's interesting that you mentioned power, because I think that's one aspect of what I think is important to consider in terms of, that yes, there's this sort of fear that if we share power, right, or relinquish power, right, so that somebody else has power, right, to any degree, that it's sort of that zero-sum game, right, where I will lose power if I give somebody else power. But that's we know that's not the case, but that everyone can have agency, and everyone should have agency, and power to a certain degree, and it needs to be coupled, of course, with kind of respect for others, right? There's always a certain point at which ultimate power, if we use that in ways that's disrespectful to others, it's taking away their agency and their power, right? So there's always kind of this collaborative relationship with power that needs to take place with localization. But I think the mistake that people often make as well with localization is sort of treating all communities as sort of equal, right? And it's sort of this monolith, as if they don't have power to start with, right? And this is, I think, really, really incorrect. And this is where you hear the terms like giving power to others, because essentially it disallows us from understanding the power structures that do already exist within communities, that do already exist within individual families. And really, it's, I think, those power structures that often as intermediary organizations, which I don't think is a bad word, although some people think that it is, if you're sort of this intermediary organization. Often, I think, as the Chain Collaborative, we recognize that we are often, we're working with communities, but we're also working with their existing power structures and respecting those power structures, and respecting the kind of organization that they have created, already and independently. And I think it's really important for us to understand how our values surrounding power and our values surrounding development, are aligned with the values of the communities and the community-based organizations that we work with. Because if we don't align on those values, then we're just going to assume that just because there's a local community somewhere that is has a project that they're working on, that somehow that's kind of good enough to build a relationship. In fact, the relationship really starts from kind of talking about those values and sharing those values and understanding that there are existing kind of ways that people are already having agency and sharing their power, that we need to respect and sort of understand, I think, for real change to happen. And I just want to sort of add one additional point, about participation, because often what we're really looking at as an intermediate organization is we're trying to work with communities that are going to participate with us in some way, and that's kind of like the basis of development, right? People are participating in projects in many ways, but there are ways that participation can be very nominal, and there are ways that participation can be sort of really transformative. I think as a chain collaborative, we recognize that we are negotiating like our relationship with communities through their existing power structures often, right? They're community-based organizations that, are positive power structures, but they're there. And so our participation with the broader community is sort of negotiated through these leaders, right? Local leaders. And so it's sort of representative participation. The participation of the community members broadly is kind of done so through their representatives, right? Through those power structures. And so I think our role is not to pretend like we are participating or have a direct relationship with every single community member and every single child, in the community, which is not, necessarily the case in an intermediate organization, but rather we have a relationship with these leaders. And so our goal and what we're trying to look for and align on is that the ways in which we are sharing power and the ways in which that we are, that the people that we're working with, the local leaders are sharing power, inspires a lot of transformative participation and inspires a lot of other leaders to emerge within the community, so that even within those existing power structures there, that more people can find ways to have power and more people can find ways to have agency and sort of advocate for their rights. So a bit of a, I don't know, maybe like an academic approach to some of it, but I do think this is the mistake that people make, is sort of saying we work with local communities or local leaders, and just broad assumption that that's a monolith and that those local groups don't already have these existing institutions that are really strong, right? And often very positive, and have a lot of power. So that's what I would share for now.
Yeah, I really like your perspective, and I like the point where you said negotiating with communities through the power structures. And it's something we've also directly working with the local leaders and not from what I believe is that if we say that we are working with the communities directly, it means that again we are telling them what to do, but then with working with their leaders, it also means that we are respecting the already existing power structures within the community and working through that for participation and even for like results of the different projects. Yeah, and so I'd like discussion is I'd like to have Tobias tell us what his thoughts are with the new localization trend, and whether do you believe that there are some organizations that are being left out?
Oh, thank you again. Thank you again, Vincent. Yes, in the new localization trend in the global environment, well, we have different organizations. There are organizations that operate within their I would call it that location. There are organizations that operate within their locations of origin. There are also organizations that are from out of the areas where they target. And also these organizations operate at different levels. Some of our organizations are, I would say, very established. Some of organizations are in the path of establishment. Some organizations are just in the starting levels or starting stages. And you find that some bigger or more established organizations may have very set standards. Some bigger and established organizations may have set standards set requirements, and usually you may find that some of these set requirements leave out some of the organizations which are localized. Yes, some of the requirements may leave out some of the organizations that are more localized. Yes, so it becomes a bit challenging how these local organizations would be involved. How would the local people, how would the local community be involved if some of the requirements are beyond whatever or beyond the resources they already have? So some of the standards may also be beyond what they can attain in the initial stages. So yet, some of these local organizations are the ones who understand. They understand themselves. They understand the local people. Yes, so there is that tendency, especially with the more established organizations, to maybe leave out. Yeah, there is a tendency that they may be left out a bit. And that usually is because of the requirements.
Yeah.
Some of them are also because of the capacities. But of course, we know from the experience of tropical focus, we know that there are some standards that you come to meet over time. There are requirements, there are capacities that you come to go through over time. Yes, so some of the organizations may be left out, although like tropical focus, we have been lucky enough to have partnered with some of the organizations that were able to accept working with the grassroots, very small organizations. Like when we started, we had a lot of hardships, especially in moving towards sustainability. And if some of the organizations had stuck on the stringent requirements, then it would be very difficult for some of the small organizations to be able to be involved in working with their community.
That's great, Tobias. And I'm just noting down some notes. And thank you for, I'd like you to elaborate more on, you talk of requirements are beyond a local organization's capacity. Could you give examples of what are some of the requirements you think have been set in place and discriminate or leave out young, early stage, locally led organizations?
Well, some of the requirements are like on finance. Some organizations which are established before they can partner with other organizations, they would define the level of budget that you have handled. Yes, for instance, have you handled maybe 100,000 USDs? Some of them, how long have you operated? If you have not operated for more than 5 years, then they may not consider partnering with you. Some of them also consider the kind of systems, like the financial systems you have in place. Do you undertake annual auditing, external annual auditing of your finances? Yeah, such requirements, some of them may really push some of the organizations who really understand the local community out. Yeah, so some of these requirements are in terms of capacity, finance. Some also require that you have an office.
Yeah. But
we know so many big companies, so many big organizations started from car garages. Yes. True. But some of the more established organizations may require that you already have an office. Yeah. Yes, which may be difficult.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's really important, and it's something we're going to talk about. We'll delve deeper into it. I'd like to read a comment. Someone, Jude, localization is moving or shifting the power and decolonizing of resources to the locally led organizations for effective sustainable development goals by allowing the community to decide the most effective and need projects in the communities instead of imposing projects on them. That's something that Rebecca talks about, that you tend to find like most of the grants and funds are quite restrictive and they are quite uncertain. And so there are certain important things in the organization that needs to run, but they can't because the grant requires them to do certain things. So I'd like to encourage even our participants to keep on commenting and just giving their ideas so that we can build onto this conversation. And so the next, I'd also like to hear from James Kirima, as someone who runs an organization which can typically or can be considered to be an early stage. What is the role that an organization like Boresha Jamii, what role does an organization like Boresha Jamii play in reimagining the global development? You're on mute.
Thank you, Vincent, for just giving me this opportunity to explain and talk my experience and the experience of our organization on how the young or the early stage organization has the role they have in the global development. First of all, these are very young and very young established organization. They know the first need of the grassroots communities, because the members of the organization are from the grassroots community. So they know what is the first need of this community, and they know the needs of the community. But also, they use the bottom-up approach. They don't use the top-down approach. So they collect information and the needs from the grassroots community, and then from there they can come out with the project which is addressing the needs of that particular community. But also during finding the solution, they usually need having a collective solution. They don't like having a bottom-up solution come to the community and solve the challenge of the community. Also, it creates a sense of ownership of a particular project which is implemented in a particular community. So because it's involving the whole community in identification of the problem, so obviously there will be the sense of ownership, and finally sustainability will be obtained from there.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really liked the bottom-up approach and collective solution. That's also like bottom-up approach is something that has been quite talked of, and so yeah. Moving on to, I'd like to invite Nora to give us, based on their experience at the Chain Collaborative, on why is it important to accelerate early stage community organizations. What have you seen working with at the Chain Collaborative, and what can we learn from that?
Thanks. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have been kind of working at this intersection of community-led development and accelerating locally based early stage organizations for about 9 years now, and the ways we've done it has been a little bit different. So I think we used to work very one-on-one with groups, and the feedback that we received was that they really appreciated their relationship with the Chain Collaborative and kind of our really trusting partnership, but that what they felt like they were really missing was learning from each other. And so for this reason, we developed a cohort model, which is now our community-led development incubator program. And so basically our community-based organizations go through these sort of 3 stages together, and the learning and design, and it's the time that they're building their project ideas and working on their project plans, and learning from sort of one another. And so and that is one of the biggest purposes of that stage is also sort of trust building, both between our organization and theirs, but as well as kind of between them as local leaders of their community-based organization, and the community. So, I'd say some of what we've seen in investing in kind of early stage organizations is, essentially they're kind of organizations with really high impact potential as well, sort of, within their community. But, this is always, based on whether and to what extent, community voices and, community needs are sort of kept in mind. So what we have really seen is that as more conversations are going on within the community, and as there's more time that people have to kind of discuss amongst each other what change will look like and what impact will look like, that there's really sort of an evolution in focus. And then it kind of impact becomes expanded in that way, and participation becomes expanded. So I'll just kind of give an example from our recent work in Latin America. We're working with the group in Mexico and in Guatemala, among many others, but in these two cases in particular, they kind of entered the relationship and the incubator program with sort of an idea in mind of what they wanted to accomplish in the community. And this was, obviously based on having been a part of the community and listening, for a long time. But being able to have a more dedicated time to really have, conversations about what change could really look like. We saw a community, or the local leaders we were investing in, kind of leading feedback sessions with their community, co-creating the plans, their development plans together. Not just developing those as the leaders and the representatives, but really trying to include as many people as possible. And what we saw is that impact was really expanded, and the focus of projects was really expanded. So for example, in Mexico, there was the development of a processing center for coffee to add value to coffee. But then the youth in the community really stepped forward and said, well, in addition to this economic value, something that we feel like we're really losing is the connection to our native language. And so as a result of these kind of initial conversations that the community had, they included in their project a component of classes in Nahuatl, which is their indigenous language that is being lost. And then, similarly in Guatemala, the group kind of came to the incubator with an idea that they were going to launch this kind of nursery, shade tree and other, coffee tree nursery, so that they could sell seedlings to their community and surrounding communities for income. But then kind of also through broader conversation, a number of the women came forward in the community and said, they wanted alternative forms of income sort of outside of the harvest season, and that were maybe not as connected to the coffee harvest, which can be really volatile, right? And so they developed a different project for alternative income, an egg laying hen project, which was sort of really successful. And what was really kind of challenging about that project is we did have a donor for the project that was, worried that because it was an early stage organization and this idea was, kind of developed, that somehow the idea was developed because they were, abandoning their old idea, and that this demonstrated that they, didn't have it together, right? And they weren't sure what to do, and they were just, doing whatever they could think of, rather than understanding that it really came from this process of, of like community conversation, and it's really intentional approach. And so I think, what we've seen that there's a great deal of intention with early stage organizations, and with, kind of more time for conversation and trust building, that intention turns into something, really impactful. But we've also, learned that there still is this kind of fear among donor community that, any creativity, right, in kind of the early stage organization, any risk taking is somehow a bad thing. And in reality, doing anything is really a risk, right? And starting one's organization is a huge risk, and it's a risk that I think we need to be promoting, right? And innovation that we need to be promoting, rather than, very fearful of. But, it still is an uphill battle.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really like what you said, like there's good intention in early stage organizations, which always translates into impact. And that's something that if we look at all the partnerships that Mama Hope has established, it's always been with these early stage locally led organizations that have dreams for their communities. And what they need is resources to be able to reach their goals. And so Mama Hope has worked with them through the path, through flexible funding and technical support. So I really like that. And as you said, the fear in the donor community, I think what is needed more is trust in the ideas of the locally led organizations. And then finally, I see I'd like us to spend the next chunk of this time on the next part, but I'd like Rebeca to go next. And Rebeca, I'd like you to talk on the local knowledge and local expertise and how this is important in the localization process. And why is it also important for us to invest in the local knowledge? As someone who's grown up in the community where you serve, why is that important, and why should we do that more? So yeah.
So thank you, Vin. I think there's so many advantages on investing on the local implementers. For instance, as the previous speakers have said, that investing on local implementers, they have more knowledge, they understand the needs and the unique characteristic of these communities. But also as a locally like a local implementer, it takes it takes sense of ownership of what I do. I conduct or I design an implementation program with the sense of this is ours. So if this fails, this is our, the sense of ownership. But also investing more on local implementers is more cost saving, compared to foreigners, because we eliminate the cost maybe of reallocation, the cost of accommodation, the translators maybe. As we all know, in Tanzania, Swahili is our first language. So if you come as a foreigner, you have to take time to learn our language. You have to use resources to, learn our language. But if you employ a local person, it's easy for them just to adapt. And as we all know, like the use of volunteers, maybe, like I really appreciate the role of volunteers, but most of them come for a shorter time. So in a community-led organization, we really acknowledge the relationship, the trust, the trust that is built around the community. And this all takes time. It's not like a one-day thing, So working, local implementers working with these communities day by day, it improves trust, and it allows these communities to be vulnerable and be more open and involve themselves more in the activities that we are doing. But also empowering the local implementers unburdens the load of our government and improve our national economies. We have a lot of scholars, but we have less opportunities. So investing on a local person like me, it's an advantage for our local our government. But also investing more on local people, it eliminates the mistrust, as in a community, like a local person seeing these foreigners, you're here for opportunity, and this foreigner looking at this, local person, as in this could work, it worked in our community, this could also possibly work in your community. So in order to, reduce these mistrust issues, it's better to invest more on local people. So despite of all the advantages that local implementers bring about the global development, we still face like we are the most underpaid people in the global development sector. And this has resulted to working with, undermotivated people, that's hang on hope, and you're expected to work out of passion. But in really sense, the funds that we have there are not enough to, to well pay these local implementers, despite to the, all the benefits that we bring about, to this sector. But also this local implementers, they're the ones who take charge mostly and bring about results in the communities. So I think on the monitoring and evaluation process, instead of just looking at have we reached these results, the employees' satisfaction should also be one of the indicators of project success, because we cannot pour from an empty cup. Are these people emotionally okay? Are these people financially okay? Are these people, working in a good working environment? Because it all matters to bring about results. So more self-care for these implementers, so that to bring about more good results. And I think that's it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rebecca. I like your perspective, and especially coming from a HR. I see how that's enshrined in your conversation. And I really liked how you said you talked about cost effectiveness and the role of volunteers, which who are highly appreciated. But then you find like it's not a sustainable approach to a community because it's short term, and sometimes the volunteers will come with, they're not learning from the communities, and they'll come and impose their own ways, or they are, into communities. And so, yeah, Tobias, I see your hand is up. Are you on mute? You're on mute again.
Oh, sorry, it muted again. Yeah, I just wanted to add some point, although later on Rebecca mentioned them, but I wanted to add some point about the advantages of working with members of the local implementers. Some of the advantages is that the way they understand the local community. Over time, as they grow within the community, as they are getting education within the community, they tend to notice some of the great needs within the community. Yeah, because some of these challenges, they undergo themselves, yes. For example, like myself, there are some of the challenges I experienced, like in education. So when I felt that there were the needs about education of the disadvantaged and underserved children, some of the experiences I underwent them myself. Yeah, and after completing college, there are some issues I noticed within our community. For instance, some of the challenges were that some of my former classmates in primary school who are performing much better than myself. These are my classmates who are, when exams were, we did exams, they would be among the top 10. And none of them managed to proceed beyond high school. Yes, and they were performing better in primary school. So these are some of the things that the people within the local community notice themselves. So by the time they decide to take action, most of these actions is driven from within. And these actions are driven from their understanding of the people. Yes, it is an inspiration that comes out of what you really understand, yeah, within the community.
Yeah, that's a really great perspective. Because another thing we see quite a lot is the passion that most local leaders have. Like, for instance, even if they don't have the right resources or the adequate resources, they'll use the minimal resources that they have to continue doing the work of serving their communities. We see them volunteer. Tobias, your story on how Tropical Focus began and how you used a lot of your resources to support the community. So looking at all those and seeing how passion-driven most of the leaders are is why it's so important to have investment in like local expertise. And so finishing, coming to an end, I'd like to talk a bit about our program before having a parting shot from our panelists. And I'm going to rush through that. And so I'd like to introduce the Localization Development Accelerator program that the team at Mama Hope came up or developed for, I'd say, from towards the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. And the program came about because we realized that there's still a gap within the global development sector in terms of investment in early stage community-led organizations. As we said, most of the donors are still investing in organizations that are established. And so the organizations that do not have the means to come up with such systems like communications, finance, the ones that Tobias touched on, are left out in the work. And so the Localization Development Accelerator program comes in to cover the gap, to work with early stage community-led organizations in equipping them with the right skills and techniques or systems to turn them into effective and efficient entities in a way that they are effective in running their programs and efficient in how they utilize grants. And so the program is divided into 3 stages. We do have the initial stage, which is a bridge stage, whereby we basically enroll or take up early stage organizations that have a budget of under 100,000 USD. And then we take them through some introductory capacity strengthening in terms of like finances, leadership training, communications and marketing, strategic planning. And we use this initially as a more of a get to know one another, values, a due diligence year. And organizations are not guaranteed that they're going to move on to the next step because we always look at certain criteria. Are they committed to sustainability? Do they have community buy-in? And what are their long-term goals for their communities? Are they organizations that will grow? And then once the year is done, they move on to a 3-year phase, which we call the growth stage. And in these, we have the first year, the second year, and the third year. And in these 3 stages, organizations move into to deep or intense capacity building or capacity strengthening in terms of communications and marketing, strategic planning, finance and operations, results-based program management. We also have an aspect of community building where organizations are encouraged to learn from one another. So we have a learning and solidarity network where organizations are able to learn from one another and replicate successful models. I'll give an example of, we've done this informally previously, and like Tobias, when you visited Uganda, Budondo, and learned about some of their work, and you were able to replicate at your organization. I can give an example of James Kirima too. You've learned from St. Timothy's a lot through Pastor James, and what you've learned from the organization, you've also been able to replicate in your own organization. And so after the 3 years are done, the organizations move into an alumni network. And the alumni network is more of it's more of a CSO, civil society, partner-led movement, whereby we believe that for the 4 years we've worked with these organizations, we've equipped them with a voice and the knowledge to speak and advocate for themselves. And so the alumni net advocate for their own and informing change within the global development sector. So my colleague has shared a link to the program, and you can learn more by clicking onto that link. And I'd like to know whether we have any questions at the moment, and we can answer them from our participants. But as we get the questions, I'd like some parting shots from our panelists, and I'd like to start with James. What are some of your parting shots from the conversation we've had?
Sorry, Vincent, can you come again?
What are your closing remarks or your parting shot?
Okay. Thank you very much, Vincent, again for giving me this opportunity to speak. I would like to encourage the big donors and other supporters to invest on the early stage organization, as we have heard from different participants the advantages of investing on the early stage organization. We believe that if we empower this local stage organization, we will really reach the sustainability of what is needed now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, James, and thank you for your great insights and the work that you're doing at Boresha Jamii. I'd also welcome Nora to give her parting shot.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, thank you again for inviting me here and for this conversation, to all the attendees. I think, one thing I would just add at the end is there's this, tendency for people to think that community-led or, localization, locally led development, means that there's sort of no role for anyone outside of the community. And, I think it's really about what is the value that we're adding both inside and outside of, from inside and outside the community. That's sort of the focus. And, just like I've, had the opportunity to learn, and share and bounce ideas off people, throughout my life. I think this is also something that, all of the local leaders and community members that we work with are also craving. So it's also about ensuring that opportunity that co-learning, can take place. And so it's not about, having like no touch or no communication and just, like having no role, right, and in partnership with communities, but really, fomenting kind of agency and opportunity in a very kind of value-driven way. So that's my parting
Yeah, thank you so much, Nora, for that. And I like that value in and out of the community. Next, I'd like Tobias. What are your parting shots?
I would just like to say I've really gotten some encouraging discussion. I think the comments I've gotten from most of you, they're very encouraging, they're very enlightening, and I was really happy to have had a discussion, a very lively discussion with everyone. Also, I would like to say that we are really happy that we have been in partnership with with the Mama Hope. Mama Hope really supported us to move from very rudimentary stages where we could not operate sustainably up to the current stage where we are feeling a bit confident. We are feeling more confident, we are feeling more stronger than where we started with Mama Hope. Initially, we were really feeling scared because our activities, in case the support we were getting from the two partners that we had, that was Mama Hope and Bailo Chakon, which is currently Woven Foundation. We were feeling that in case anything happens, then we would not be able to operate beyond even 1 month. Yes, because everything that we were, all the activities we were running relied on support, from external support. But currently, Mama Hope really supported us to have a lot of resources, both in terms of capacity, also in terms of, we also have land, which we acquired through Mama Hope support. And now we also have at least some income generating activities that can be able to give us a bit of assurance. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tobias. We also thank you for being a valued partner and for the great work you're doing in your community. I'd just like to read a comment here that I really liked from Godfrey. He says, we have been experiencing a lot of floods in Kasese, not until we consulted the elders. Because of them, they knew where the origin of the streams or rivers used to pass. It's always very important to consult and involve the elders of the community in any implementation of an activity. They know what can work and what cannot work. Thank you so much, Godfrey, for that comment. And finally, I'd like Rebecca to give us her closing remarks.
First, I would love to appreciate Mama Hope for creating these platforms for both of the, funding partners and the leaders from grassroots communities to come together and share their challenges and experience and come up with, solutions about this. So as for me, I would love to advise all the, grassroots and the funding partners to have more of partnership, more of a collaboration, relationship, appreciate one's another role. We are all here to, to make the communities work better from different lenses. So it's important to appreciate each other's roles. Like you come with the funds, but we have the, expertise, we have the, we have more knowledge about this community. So I appreciate each other's roles, and we should have more of a win-win situation and be more appreciative, but also collaborate more. First in grassroots levels that we are working with, as we always say, that's collaboration over competition. Once you had a shared goal, it's more important to share the resources that you have. It's more important to share the expertise that you have in order to have intensively reach a wider range of audience. So more of, partnership, collaboration, but also it's a call for these grassroots communities to unhook ourselves from the dependence, syndrome. Have more of income generating activities, could have small capacity, could bring about the small capacity of funds, but that intentionally, wants to improve lives of people without strict regulations, that do not allow, that do not align with your values as an organization or as a nation. So also this, also becoming, financially independent will help this grassroots level, to push back, to have boundaries like you shouldn't cross here. This does not align with us. But we as grassroots communities, we have this tendency of shifting our targets, basing on fund. The funds have gone to maternal issues. Today we're dealing with maternal issues. Tomorrow we'll, just because of the financial desperation and starvation. So once we are financially stable, we'll, be authentic to ourselves, stick to what we have dreamt about, rather than fixing ourselves, every now and then to fit in the, in different boxes just because of the funds. But also it's a call for the global funders, to have more simplified procedures of grant application, because this grassroots level, we have a fewer number of employees. You could find, like, as you have heard from James, he's the director, he's the, he's the founder, he's the director, could be the very same person who deals with the finance, implementer and all that. So if this grant applications process becomes hard, we spend more time to look for funds and leave the other activities like planning, organizing and so forth. So that's it for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate that. I especially like the comment on collaboration over competition. Collaborate. It's so important for even local leaders to collaborate with their peers. Do not compete over the resources. Instead, come together, work together. And because again, you're all doing something that is positive to the community. So there's no need of competing over the resources, rather come up with solution collectively that enhance and improve the lives within the community. And so we've come to the end of our webinar. I'd like to thank, first of all, I'd like to thank our panelists for the great job, and also for availing themselves to share and give their insights on the topic of discussion today. I'd also like to thank our participants for joining us and getting to hear about Mama Hope and the work that we do, and also meeting our partners and friends. I'd like to encourage you all to, if you get a chance, we've put in the chat box more details about the Localization Development Accelerator program. If you would like to partner with Mama Hope, we've also shared a link in the chat box for you to fill it out. And if you'd like to maybe write to Mama Hope and have a conversation, set up a meeting, please write to us through global@mamahope.org. You can also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And I'd also like to say that I'd also like to thank my colleague who is somewhere in the background coordinating the webinar. Thank you for putting this together, really amazing. And we'd like to say bye-bye for now, wishing everyone a good day. For those ones who are joining in North America, Nora, have a good day. And for the rest of us who are in East Africa, I'd like to wish us a good night. So bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.